In this video, I'm going to show you how to slice wood to make this really cool bent wood desk lamp. Alexa, start the video.
Starting the mother effing video.
Before I go cutting wood all crazy, I need to make a quick jig for my crosscut sled. I laid a new piece of plywood on my crosscut sled to get a fresh clean cut for this jig. I measured half an inch away from the center of my new cut and used a small strip that is the same thickness as my blade as a positive stop. This was easy to set up with some CA glue and accelerator. I used a 1/4 inch drill bit to space out my wood to make my first cut. Once I made that cut, I flipped the piece over and pushed it up against the small strip to make my second cut. Once I've done these first two cuts, everything else just falls into place. I just have to make sure I'm flipping the board after every cut. My thin strip was off by a bit, and because of compounding errors, I was getting very little wood left on one side of my cuts the further down I went. I readjusted the strip and started cutting from the opposite end of the wood. This was still off by a bit, so I decided to stop and start over on a whole new piece. This time I decided to do it on how I previously had done it on some scrap. That was to measure a 1/4 inch on each side of the board. All I have to do now is line up my mark on the center of the blade each time I have to make the cut. This does not have to be perfect each time. With that being successful, I then had to mark my horizontal cuts. These are spaced out a 1/4 inch apart on each side, just like the vertical cuts. My crosscut sled is too small to cut something this long, so I ended up using my track saw instead. I knew from the start that I had a crack on the end of my board, but I thought CA glue would be able to keep this together. Unfortunately, it did not, and as you can see, I paid the price here. So I took my first piece and finished off the rest of the cuts just by eyeballing the spacing, and it actually turned out pretty good. I jumped the gun and took the new board over to get soaked in my secret wood bending sauce. Unfortunately, I cannot use it because I forgot to cut my horizontal lines. So for the third time, I had to cut a new piece, making sure it didn't have any defects like knots or checks. I sliced it horizontal and vertically. I also remembered to cut a rabbet, so I had somewhere to put the top and the bottom. Again, I gave the secret wood bending sauce, and I might leave a link down below in the description. After letting it dry for about 15 minutes, I removed the strap and cut it down to size. So there's a reason why I made it longer than it needs to be. The wood will shrink and expand depending on how wet the wood is. While I let that dry, I cut my top and my bottom from some walnut as well. I used the MDF templates I've been using all this time to make an exact copy out of walnut. I used a table saw to resaw my wood, leaving a small piece that I could cut after with a handsaw. Once I had most of the material removed, I could use a router with the flush trim bit and use my MDF template to make an exact copy. This looks good, but I can make it better. Again, using the MDF template, I cut out some slots to see if I would like it before attempting it on my walnut, and I did. I drilled 2 holes big enough to fit my jigsaw blade, 2 inches apart, and connected them using my jigsaw. I'm going to be using a wooden rod. I will wrap a LED strip around this and put it in the center. The cuts made by the saw blade leaves gaps for the light to shine through. I cut the rod down to fit and cut it a little bit more. That way I can add an Alexa inside as well. So there's absolutely no way I'm gonna be able to stand inside all these cracks and gaps. So I'm gonna go ahead and just apply finish. If you enjoyed this wood bending video, then I have good news for you. I have a full playlist of wood bending videos right here for you to watch. It's right here. Go ahead and just click on it. Okay, I'll see you over there.